Hello and welcome to Video Game Hangover. I'm Randy Dickinson and I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Hey, I'm DJ Ross. I am in Mountain View, California.
Each week on Video Game Hangover, we talk about the games that have been keeping us up at night. This week we're playing... What are we playing? We're playing NieR Replicant version 1.224744874139... ...
Did it.
Yep. We're also playing, and man, I thought my game was going to be a mouthful this week, but we're also playing Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion.
Yeah. I was like, I can beat that.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah. Randy thinks he could play something with a ridiculous title. Not going to show me up this week.
Yep. Congratulations.
Thank you. Is this this is ridiculous. We talk about weird game titles on here. It seems to be a weekly thing at this point, but I think this takes it.
Yeah.
It's a lot of numbers
there's a very good reason the game that I'm playing is called Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion. I don't know if there's a very good reason for a very long repeating number to be in your game title.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the producer came out and said that there's a bit of randomness to the title. So, yeah, maybe not incredibly purposeful.
Yep. So, yeah, we'll get to that. Speaking of random numbers, and we don't always do this in the show, but this is episode 491 of Video Game Hangover.
It is.
We are 9 episodes away from our 500th podcast.
I know. There's like 9 left. What happens
9.
then?
And DJ and I don't know what we should do about that. So, dear listeners, if you have suggestions for how to best observe, making 500 of these things. We've made more than 500 if we include all the other weird stuff that we've done over the years.
Oh, yeah.
But,
yeah, there have been numerous half-numbered episodes, I believe.
Yeah.
We did an episode 0.
We did have an episode 0, yes. That is out there somewhere on the internet for you to enjoy. Or not enjoy, your choice.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you have suggestions for how to best sort of observe the 500th, reach out to us. Let us know. You can get us on Twitter. Get us on the Facebook. Other things. What else? contact@VGHangover.com. Share your great ideas with us because we are stumped for how to I don't know. I was going to say ring in the new year. How to best celebrate 500
We also need
episodes.
ideas for New Year.
Right, yeah. You've got a little bit longer to figure that out. But our pressing issue is what do we do for VGH 500?
It's a weird situation because, I don't really get precious about big anniversaries like that. I barely celebrate my own birthday. So I'm like, episode 500, why not? It'll just... we'll just do a show like we always do. But I feel like that seems significant. Yeah.
I mean, how many podcasts get to 500? That's true. I've not done the research on that. I'm just asking a question. But, I have a bad habit of subscribing to podcasts that sort of fizzle out after, 8 or 9 of them, if they ever get that far. So,
should we have stopped by now?
Right,
what are we still doing here?
Maybe we just need a reboot. We need VGH Series 1.
Yeah. God, yeah, let's ask Microsoft how to name it. I did really like the idea of just not numbering them anymore, because that seems to be very en vogue. They stopped numbering Assassin's Creed games. They stopped numbering Star Trek movies after a certain point. Maybe they just don't have numbers anymore.
We have VGH Origins.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Well, I mean, that would be, we did the 0, so we could do Origins. That could be like a reboot.
Yeah. VGH Revengeance.
Yeah. Ooh. I've been waiting to do that one, so I like the way this is going.
If any podcast needs a Revengeance. Yeah. So yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's nothing, and that's probably a fair answer, and maybe that's where we're going to land anyways. But if there's, if you as a listener would just rather us do a happy-go-lucky episode of the week for VGH 500, then, share that opinion with us as well.
Yeah. I mean, here's another way of looking at it. Like, sometimes when we try to do, like, little special event episodes, I feel like it's when when shows I listen to try and do an event episode, it's like, I don't really tune in to have a weird, weird novelty episode. I just want to listen to the show that week.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
That's fair.
I'm making a case for not doing anything. Who knows?
Okay, cool. I'm open to that. We've got 9 weeks to figure it out.
Right. Maybe I'll just wear a tie that episode. No one will know.
I'll have a fancy dress episode that no one will get to see.
Yeah.
You and I'll know, though.
All sorts of ideas.
Yeah. Tops and tails.
Anyway, that's good. Put that out there.
Yeah.
Get people thinking about it.
Let's crowdsource it.
Yeah.
So, video games, DJ.
Video games. Man, I have been playing this game that is making me furious. I'm so mad about it.
Really?
That I was like, this NieR game was coming out, and I played the original NieR. This is a remake of the original NieR Replicant version 1.22, whatever. I was like, I don't know if I want to play this right away. I feel like it's not urgent. I feel like I can wait.
Mostly because it's a remake of a game that you've already played.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But this other game that I've been playing made me so angry that I was just like, I need something else. I rage bought this NieR game as an excuse to stop playing this other thing. I'm not going to talk about the other game this week. Stay tuned to hear more about that later. But anyway, that's how I arrived at playing NieR Replicant version 1.224744, whatever. It's a long title.
I gotta tell you, all I care about now is that other game.
Well,
you have successfully teased it. So yeah, we're gonna have to fast forward now to the future.
Okay. No, stay tuned. I need to just organize my thoughts around the
Okay, all right. I'll hang with you on NieR for the short term, but I'm itching to hear about that other thing.
Yeah, I'm sure. Oh man. But so where to start with NieR? It's like I said, it is a remake of this game that came out in 2009 called NieR Replicant, as it was called in Japan. And when they brought it over here, it was just called NieR. But it's kind of this weird history. It is an action RPG directed by Yoko Taro, who you may have heard about at this point, because since the sequel, NieR Automata, just blew up, he has become kind of like a fairly well-known personality, I feel like, in the gaming space. If you don't know the name, maybe you have seen pictures of him wearing his spooky moon face head. Whenever he does interview appearances, he wears this mask that one of the characters in the game wears. It's mildly unsettling.
It is super unsettling. I saw it in the trailer for NieR Replicant, and I was like, "What is that?"
Yeah, so it's a character in NieR Replicant. It's got these big dinner plate eyes and the super wide, unnatural smile. It's pretty weird. It's a weird thing to wear to all your PR appearances.
Yeah.
But that's kind of his thing. He's just a weird dude whose ideas are a little out there.
Am I right in sort of theorizing, I guess, that the scale or the visibility of NieR kind of blew up with Automata?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't really feel like it was kind of a thing before.
No, it wasn't. And in fact, NieR Automata doesn't make any sense that they even made a sequel to this game, because it was not popular. But they did, and it was super popular for whatever reason, which is good, because now there's all this extra attention on this game, which I think... So I ended up playing it before Automata came out. I think it was after the buzz had already started around that game.
The original NieR.
Yes. I played it in 2017. Came out in 2009. But I'd heard things about this game. It got kind of panned originally when it came out for kind of dubious reasons. It was 2009 was kind of we're a little bit into, actually we're quite a ways into sort of the PS3, Xbox 360 generation. Everybody was really into playing Western games online. Japanese developers were kind of struggling to figure out how to make games in HD, if we remember.
I do.
So I think there was a lot of sentiment, especially that felt like just the narrative in games journalism. They're like, oh man, Japan's really dropping the ball this generation. What's going on? Like there was a lot of like just really questionable stuff coming out of Japan at that point. Mm-hmm. But then there was this NieR game that came out, and I think one of the most infamous reviews came from some writer who I'm not going to name, but they got like 2 hours into the game, and there was a fishing mini game that they could just not make heads or tails of, so they just gave up on writing a review, which is like seems kind of questionable. But that became just like people's impression of this game. It's like, oh man, this game that is so obtuse that they won't even write reviews about it.
Yeah, couldn't be bothered to sort of write a review, but I'm sure wrote and tweeted a ton about how he couldn't get through the fishing minigame.
Oh yeah. So that kind of went away, like out of the like discourse for a while, and I forget how it kind of resurfaced. But a lot of people ended up like testifying for it. They're like, oh yeah, it's actually, if you get into it, if you ignore this fishing minigame,
if you get past the fishing game,
it's just not nearly as much of a wall as it was made out to be in that review. It's actually like there's some really cool ideas going on. There's like a really cool storyline. Actually, I remember how I was introduced to it. I mean, after I kind of forgotten about all these reviews, is that it has easily one of the top 5 soundtracks of all time, I think. It's just really remarkable, really like makes an impression. So I listened to that quite a bit. And eventually I just got so curious. I'm like, what is the game that is associated with the soundtrack actually about? Maybe I should check it out.
That's kind of an interesting way into it.
Yeah, so I ended up playing it. And yeah, it's kind of like, it's true that it's a little bit of a janky PS3 game. But like everything they said about it was true. There's like a really cool story buried in there. Lots of very interesting and unusual characters. Strange like scenario concepts going on.
And I think it's fair to say that if NieR Automata hadn't sort of become a thing, that this remake likely would not have happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I don't know what their plans are for like the next new NieR game, or if they're even working on one. Yeah. But it does feel a little bit like while they're kind of like letting that stew for a little bit, there's this other NieR game that few people played compared to Automata that they could kind of resurrect on modern consoles. Everybody has another chance to play it, because God, imagine just trying to play a PS3 game in 2021 at this point.
Is it PS3 exclusive?
So that's also complicated. There was this weird thing. So it came out in Japan, and I think I'm getting this right. So it came out in Japan on PS3, I think. It was called NieR Replicant, and it starred as the main character, this kind of like the main character is like just this guy. The game is about this guy who has a sister, or who is just like terminally ill, and he just devotes his life to like taking care of his sister and hopefully trying to find a cure for whatever disease she's got going on. And in NieR Replicant, the main character is kind of this, like how you would expect a young JRPG protagonist to look. He's got kind of like the very boyish face and kind of feathery hair. So you're like, yeah, that's a JRPG protagonist, sure.
Right. Sounds right.
And I think there was like, within Square Enix or wherever, there was this concern that that type of character wasn't going to play with Western audiences, especially in like 2009 when everybody was playing like Modern Warfare or whatever.
Right.
So they changed him for the US release. I forget if this version came out in Japan, but they made a version called NieR Gestalt. And instead of this young JRPG looking protagonist, it was just this super ugly, like old guy. So they changed the brother character into this father figure. And they're like, yeah, this is what Western audiences want. They want this weird old man.
This is what the Halo crowd wants, yeah.
Right. So they put that out there. And for whatever reason, the game just didn't sell with Western audiences. But that was the version I ended up playing. And it was great. Like it feels like this character change, this like pretty significant change, I thought was so interesting. And this father character worked out so well. Instead of having this brother-sister relationship, it was suddenly this dad taking care of his daughter, which I thought was, even by the time I played this in like 2017, we had things like The Last of Us, and it just felt like we had a lot of games about sad video game dads taking care of their estranged daughters or whatever at that point. But like, if you just imagined if you had played something like that in 2009, I feel like no other games were really doing that. This was kind of a weird novelty. But I thought that like the relationship worked so well in this game. I thought it was really good. And that is like, that was a lot of the reason I was hesitant to play this remake, because the remake is solely NieR Replicant. So you get the young like JRPG guy. You get the brother as the main character. You don't have an option of playing as the father, NieR.
I just completely excised it.
Yeah. He shows up in like some bonus DLC episode or something like that, which I haven't reached that point in the game yet. So he's not completely gone, but if you're playing through the main story, you play as the brother, which I'll admit I was like, okay, so I didn't play as the brother last time. I didn't get sort of the full nuances of whatever that experience was like. But at the same time, I just miss playing as the dad. Like, I want to play that game again.
Right.
Like, that was really good. So I was kind of on the fence, like, not sure if I'm interested in playing as this kid. Maybe I'll get it eventually, just to see how it stacks up to the original. Luckily, this other game came along and just made me so angry. It kind of pushed me into playing this.
Forced your hand, yeah.
Yeah. Because, I like the original a lot. I'd play it again. This, I'll admit, it's definitely interesting getting this new perspective on the story. So far, I'm not super into him. I think I still prefer the dad by far. But it's weird having what is essentially the same game. Like, they didn't really change the plot at all. It's just they swapped out. It's like, it's not a dad anymore, it's a brother. Yeah. And clearly there are like some dialogue changes where obviously they're like talking to a young kid in this one, and they would have had to alter it. So it was talking to an older guy.
Right.
So that's kind of interesting also, but just, it's so weird. Just like essentially copy pasting a different character into this role.
But completely changing your relationship with the sick character.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have thought that the easy way out of kind of putting the generic JRPG anime guy on the back burner would be just sort of replace him with someone who looks a little more Western, who looks a little more, who is still sort of a young guy, so you can keep kind of the context of the relationship and all of the other references. But, de-anime him a little bit. But no, just swapped it with an old guy and had to work all of that, those changes around it.
Yeah. So, I wonder, I mean, maybe there have been interviews on just the full extent of the decision-making process. That would be really interesting to see. I love a version, for instance, where it's like just, I don't know, Chris Evans is the brother instead of this anime guy. But whatever. It's like
GTA 5 where you just hit the shoulder buttons and swap back and forth between them. Yeah.
I thought you were going to say like it's Nico Bellic as the brother. No. It's just like, oh, okay. Or like Captain
Cousin.
Price. Yeah. No, it's cousin NieR instead of the brother. It'd be great.
Right, yeah.
Take his daughter bowling.
Oh, is NieR the daughter? Is NieR the sick girl?
Oh, no. NieR is the main character. NieR is either
gotcha.
The father or the brother.
Okay. Whichever the case may be.
Yeah, depending on which version you're playing.
Okay.
So I'm still kind of like coming to terms with that. It's been fine. It's not like turning me away from playing it. It's still a pretty fun game.
Yeah.
They have changed. I mean, I don't know how much of an overview I've given the game at this point. I've said it's like an action RPG. You're on this quest to like find a cure for your daughter's illness. The setting though is so weird. It starts off with like one of the most amazing sort of prologue sequences in video games, which I'm not going to give away because it's just so bizarre. But the game basically takes place in this future Earth, which it's like so far in the future that humanity is, I want to say it's like on the verge of extinction, but it's kind of already gone extinct. It's like just the last few vestiges of humanity kind of living in these like very pastoral kind of primitive villages. And there are a bunch of malevolent kind of like monsters that occasionally attack the town. They're called shades, and they're just like, why are these shades here? What's their deal? So it's just really weird kind of setting for a game to begin with.
Yeah.
But the world is amazing. Like all the different kind of settings you visit, like dungeons essentially, are very visually striking and imaginative. You visit a bunch of other villages that are just complete fantasy settings. Like you go to, like, one is just a harbor town, which I love because it's just a very nice harbor town to have in a game. But then there's this other one, which is a village kind of built into like opposite sides of this chasm. And in order to get from one side of the village to the other, you have to just cross over these very narrow catwalks from one side to the other. And it's like all the like huts built into the sides of the chasm with like these little weird metal cylinders. It's like a completely impractical way to actually have a functioning village. But it's just like, hey, it's a video game. Let's just make weird places where people live. That's fine. We can do it.
It's creative. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's super fun just to explore the world and just kind of imagine what things look like at the end of humanity, essentially.
Huh.
They've kind of taken the combat from the original NieR. It was like, I'll kind of describe it as, it's not quite like Bayonetta or Devil May Cry, like a full like fancy action game or whatever. It was a little clunky on the PS3, to be honest. But what they've done is, it feels like they've taken basically the combat system from NieR Automata, which was developed by Platinum Games, and felt kind of like, still wasn't quite as hardcore as the system, like the combat in like Bayonetta or Devil May Cry, but it was just like a very easy version of that. And it sort of felt like they had designed it in a way where you don't have to be a pro action gamer to like get through the game.
Oh, cool.
You can mostly get through by like spamming the dodge move.
It sounds like my kind of game.
Yeah. It felt like, you know, people playing this aren't necessarily there because they love like Platinum action games. They're just here to take in Yoko Taro's weird vision and like the crazy storylines that he comes up with.
But it's playable, right? I mean, it's serviceable.
Oh, yeah. So it feels like they've taken that from Automata, and it plays much closer to that than the original NieR did, which I guess is fine at this point. I've kind of liked the fact that the original version, you had to be a little more invested in the combat, and it was actually pretty challenging at points. But it could also be a little bit frustrating because it wasn't the greatest combat system. So in this, it just feels like it's very fluid and frictionless, which I imagine is appealing to everybody probably coming from Automata who never played the original.
Right.
And if I can confess something a little bit scandalous, I'm playing this on easy mode.
Hey.
With auto battle turned on.
Oh, wow.
Because I've like, all right, I played the original NieR. I kind of just want to see, like, I kind of want to revisit the whole experience, of course, and get the story and see what the differences are with this, like, this different character. I don't know if I need to struggle through all the battles again, so I'll just let the computer play for most of it. And there are a bunch of different toggles you can turn on. Like, you can turn on, if I can remember, there's just like the straight up like auto melee combat or whatever, or you can have it cast magic spells at will, and you can have it automatically dodge and use items. So you can like turn all these on and off individually. And also you can just like click one of the sticks to turn the entire auto system on and off. So occasionally, like whenever a boss shows up, I'll be like, all right, I think I'll do this one. So
let's play that, yeah.
Yeah, let's do the boss fights. But you could also you basically just steer NieR around the world. And if he gets close to an enemy, the computer will take over and start doing all these flashy combat moves, which is, honestly, it's pretty exciting to watch. So on some level, I'm like, oh, I'll just sit back and watch this ridiculous like anime fight play out on the screen.
And there's no pressure on you to have to learn how to do those combos.
No, not really. I mean, it's not an incredibly complicated combo system anyway. It's like, it's the same way in Automata. I feel like you mostly just button mash. Maybe occasionally you will hit triangle instead of square, but not a lot of depth to it. At least not the way I played it. Mm-hmm. But in this, you know, I'm fine letting the computer handle it most of the time, and sometimes I will just tap square or triangle a few times to feel like I've contributed.
So you're not just watching a movie.
Right. But it's good, because I remember, or I kind of forgotten this about the original, is that the characters kind of talk a lot. Like you have, like, very early on in the story, you meet Grimoire Weiss, who is this talking book who accompanies you, and this is like the voice actors in this game, in the original and also the remake, deserve a lot of praise because they like do such a great job in giving these characters personality. So I'm going to give a shout out to, I believe it's Liam O'Brien doing the voice of Grimoire Weiss. And he has kind of this, he's doing like, so like kind of just a droll Alan Rickman performance. Like the character itself is very sarcastic and kind of world weary. Don't forget that he is also a book just kind of floating in the air behind NieR as he chops up all these enemies. But the dialogue back and forth between him and the main character is very entertaining. So just the fact that you can leave it on auto battle means it's much easier to pay attention to all the dialogue going back and forth, which is, I'd say, is like a better reason to get into the game than, because you want to play an action game, for instance.
Right. Interesting.
So that's very good. It was kind of a, I don't know. I don't want to say it was like a point of pride that I played the original game without this auto battle system, but at this point I'm just like, sure, I'll try it. I've heard people saying like, give the auto battle a shot. This seems like a fine opportunity to test it out, and it's been enjoyable so far.
Cool. Now, I remember I believe, if I'm sort of remembering the game correctly, in NieR Automata, you describing a very kind of unique kind of gaming structure, in that the game ends frequently, and that you sort of replay the game multiple times, essentially, with alternate kind of endings and stuff like that. Is Replicant structured similarly? And is that accurate?
Yeah. That's actually the next thing I was going to talk about. So
okay, cool.
Very astute. It does. Like, so if you played Automata, you know, I mean, you haven't played it. I'm just talking to
I've not yet.
people in general who may have played it.
If other human beings on the planet have played NieR Automata.
Right. So yeah, there are like all these multiple endings. A lot of them sort of involve, I mean, it's not like, I mean, in some cases they are just weird alternate endings. But in order to play through sort of the entirety of the narrative in that game, you had to like get to ending A, and then you play a different sequence of events almost, and then that is like ending B. So it's not like you get 100% through the story, you watch the credits, and that's considered an ending. It's sort of like they're almost chapters in a way. So ending A would be the end of like chapter 1, and then B is chapter 2, and all that. Roughly. If you've played Automata, you know that it's not quite how it works. But anyway, it's similar in NieR Replicant. It is it's a little bit more repetitive, the stuff that you have to replay in like compared to NieR Automata, but it's still the same deal where in order to experience the full story, you do have to get through all these endings, and there are only 5 or like 4.5 in this one maybe. That you have to go through. There aren't like Automata had a bunch of weird like joke endings for whatever reason, but this one they keep it nice and brief. You do end up having to go through a lot of the same sections over and over again, so it does feel a little bit repetitive. There's a little sort of like added nuance to it a few times as you go through it again, but you just kind of have to keep that in mind as you're getting into this. Because that is one of the few things about it that feels like, oh yeah, this was kind of a weird PS3 game that was designed with sort of like game design sensibilities from 10 or 11 years ago. But I think like if you're really interested in playing this, I recommend that you go through every ending. You don't just play it till you see the credits the first time, because that's not because like all the really cool stuff happens in the last like third of the game after you've gotten a few of the endings, I think.
Huh. And does the game prompt you to replay it, or do you have to sort of figure that out on your own, or hear it on a podcast so you know? So
I don't remember at this point.
Okay.
Because I haven't gotten through the first sort of chapter of the game yet. Sort of the way that I became aware of these multiple endings in the original is that there were trophies. And it was like, you get a trophy or like a PlayStation trophy for, you reached ending A and ending B. And all that. So I was like, okay, so there's like something going on with these endings. And there are all these like special conditions you need to fulfill. I think the 3rd through 5th endings, or at least the last 2. So somebody out there has got to have like a spoiler-free guide to explain how to do that. Mm-hmm. But again, I don't remember how clear it makes it after you finish the game the first time that, oh, there's more stuff that you need to do. I feel like it gives you a message like, okay, you've reached this ending. now like reload your save file and play it again, and different things will happen. So I think it probably does guide you a little bit.
Good. You wonder how many people in the world like, oh, well, I'm done, put down the controller and never go back to it again after that first appearance of the credits, and there's a lot more game apparently.
Yeah. I imagine that they, like, however it was on the 2009 version, they have probably taken steps to make it a little clearer what you're supposed to do. Because, like, a lot of... It feels like they have done that in other areas as well. Like, there are a lot more tutorials than I remember there being.
Oh, interesting.
Especially in regards to the fishing game, funny enough. they do a much better job of explaining how they're supposed to get through that. Weird. I wonder why they had to do that. Yeah. But I feel like once I get to that first ending, I'm interested in seeing how much they have sort of improved that player experience. So that being said, despite the fact that I'm playing as the young NieR and not the older NieR, I'm still into it. Still really good. I'm very glad that it's still not like a perfect game or anything, but it's great that they have made this remake. So it's more accessible to a lot of people, because I think it's definitely worth checking out.
Cool. And
I don't have to think about the other game while I'm playing this, so it's
good. Mission accomplished then.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, I don't know where I sort of come in on these games. I had never heard of the first one, and Automata looked cool. It definitely has sort of a unique visual flair to it. Mm-hmm. You couldn't go to PAX for a number of years without seeing multiple people sort of cosplaying as the robot maid character from
right.
NieR Automata. So I've definitely been around it, but it's never sort of been something that I felt sort of compelled to check out. So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of interesting to hear about. And as you sort of deep dive into the kind of the plot and structure of the first one here, it certainly sounds like a very kind of unique proposition.
Yeah. I really like the, not having experienced Automata at that point, I just thought it was a very fresh take on like an open world RPG. Especially at the time that I played it. I forgot what else I was playing in 2017. But it was cool coming back to a game that had been like kind of overlooked, but still had like this really great sort of like creativity to it.
Right.
I've seen a lot of people talking about like if you're brand new to the series, if this is the place where you want to start, or if you just play Automata, because I feel like that one is probably still more accessible. I don't know what I would recommend at this point. I feel like you probably could start with this one without having played Automata, and I think it'd be fine.
Is there are they direct sequels, or is it sort of two separate stories?
They kind of are. You don't really like this one comes before Automata, obviously, but like I think you'd be fine playing Automata without having played this. I mean, obviously a lot of people did, and
I'm sure a lot of people did. Yeah, exactly.
There's definitely like callbacks to this in Automata, but I don't want to give anything away and sort of how this manifests in the other game. So I think ideally you would play this before Automata, just so you would get all the little hooks in the second one. But I think you'd also totally be fine playing this, or no, playing Automata first and being confused about some stuff, and then playing this and realizing, oh, so this is what was going on in the other game.
Yeah. And particularly now, here it is, playable on your shiny new platform of choice. Yeah. So, yeah, it's not like you have to sort of, dust off the PS3 to go resurrect this thing.
Yeah. I don't know if I would recommend people playing the PS3 version at this point. Although, I mean, if you play that one, you can play as the dad. So it's also, there is still reason to go back and play that one.
Yeah.
My dream scenario is that they just release DLC with the dad at some point. But I have no idea if that's in the cards. It seems like it would be a tremendous amount of work compared to just putting him into some side missions. But, I can always hope. I think that would be great.
Yeah. Start your letter writing campaign now, DJ.
Yeah, I'm sure some people are already on it. I'm sure there's probably already a petition asking Square Enix to add Daddy NieR back into the game. Cool. All right. Well, I have
been playing. I'm almost done. I mean, like, I was so trying to finish this game before we recorded tonight, so I could talk about how it wraps up, but just didn't quite get there.
You need a minute? You want to take a break?
Yeah, let's pause. Let's
just
pause.
knock it out.
I don't know if I'm that close, but so I've been playing this Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion.
This game.
This game, yeah. This was not because I rage quit some other game. This was just me sort of stumbling upon this thing in the eShop last week, going, "Oh, that's an amusing sort of name for a video game." And then I kept seeing references to it on Twitter and read a couple of reviews for it, like on Nintendo Life, and I forget who else reviewed it, IGN, I think. They were all very sort of enthusiastic about it. And then Rock Paper Shotgun said it was the funniest video game they'd ever played.
That's
which
high
is
praise.
Very high praise, yeah. And, I think we've talked about in the past how there's a pretty low bar for comedy in video games.
I was going to say, I was like, oh, that's high praise. And I thought, like, well, what is the funniest game I've ever played?
What are 9 other funny video games?
Is there one? If there was, like, the funniest game I ever played may have just, like, attained that title by accident. Like they were going for like the funniest
unintentionally
game
funny, yeah.
Yeah. They're like, oh, it was a great game and it just happened to be had the best jokes out of all the games that I played.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I was thinking more along the lines of like it was so bad it was hysterical.
Oh no, I mean that would be a different category, I think. God, what is that game? I think that would be interesting.
I'm not sure what that game is. I try really hard to not play bad video games. So when people, I get it every now and then, sort of in the real world. Somebody will go, "What's the worst video game you've ever played?" And I'm like, I don't know. I can't think. I don't play a lot of bad video games. Fortunately, I still get to pick what games I play. So it's not a thing where I force myself to play shitty games.
There have been instances where I will like go out of my way and play a game because I know it's supposed to be bad, and I'm hoping like. Maybe it'll be so bad that it's hilarious and I'll love it. And it usually just turns out that it's a terrible game.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, that's why why everyone hates it.
Deadly Premonition. There you go. There's my answer.
Oh, as like the most unintentionally funny game?
Yes. Yeah.
Sure.
It's not a good game. People love that game, and it's not a good game.
Yeah, I had to give up on that one. I love you, Swery, but questionable game.
Yeah. Swery's very dialed in. He's probably listening to this right now. We do owe him an apology.
Oh my god, I hope so. I'll like pass out if I find out.
He follows me on Twitter. We can't tweet it then.
I know. I've got to, I'm very careful about adding him.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't want to turn it into a block situation. But
I would die. That would be
Let me tell you about the one person I blocked on Twitter. Yeah. It's this video game developer.
No.
So yeah, anyways, Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion. Pretty good reviews. Was not really on my radar, but I've just felt after I read these sort of enthusiastic things, I got to give it a whirl. So I give it a whirl. It's a delight. It is truly just a lot of fun to play. It's a joy to experience this funny little video game. You are a turnip boy. You are a boy who is a turnip, or you're a turnip who's a boy. Your choice.
Sure. Okay.
Sure. You're and you live in sort of a vegetable filled what's the word? Anthropomorphic. Vegetable filled.
Anthropopular? I don't know.
Yeah. World populated by anthropomorphic video game vegetables and fruit. There's some fruit.
Okay.
There's a pasta noodle too, actually, so it's not just fruit; it's just food.
It's just one noodle.
So far, just one.
You'd think there'd be like a whole bowl of them or something.
You would think. He's very hostile to you, though. He's not. He's an angry little elbow pasta. But anyways, he's just angry that he's not fettuccine. So. Yeah, Turnip Boy, in the opening moments of this game, is in his little greenhouse, hanging out at his place, minding his own business, when Mayor Onion comes and accuses him of committing tax evasion.
So like Chop Master Onion, who ran for mayor?
I don't get that reference.
Oh, no. Okay, well, never mind.
Is that, what's that game? Parappa the Rapper?
You got it. There you go.
Okay, I got it. Maybe. I don't know where the influence for that is. But
just saying, he's probably a relative.
the mayor of Veggie Town here comes and accuses you of tax evasion and says, to get out of debt, you owe me a ton of money. You owe the town a ton of money. I need you to run some errands for me. And so he sort of sends Turnip Boy out into the world to collect some things of sort of dubious value. And Turnip Boy slowly learns that maybe Mayor Onion is not the best person in the world.
Well, it sounds incredibly sketchy to start with.
Maybe he has sort of trumped up his tax evasion charges. Yeah. And
so who's in debt? The town is in debt?
No, Turnip Boy is in debt.
Oh, but it's because the mayor decided he is in debt, it sounds like.
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And so you start running errands for him as a way of sort of getting yourself out of debt, so that you can get your greenhouse back, because now you're homeless. You're homeless, Turnip Boy. You set out into the world, and it feels very much like an old Zelda game from this point forward. I'm thinking like a Link Between Worlds, a Link to the Past kind of setup, where it's sort of top-down, pretty limited combat options. You have a little sword eventually, a couple of other fun little weapons and toys you get to play with, but it's mostly you sort of trying to avoid enemies on the overworld and occasionally getting into some big boss battles and things like that.
Is that because the game wants you to avoid enemies, or because you just try and avoid enemies in every Zelda game?
That second thing. Yeah, I mostly...
Okay, I had my suspicions.
Yes. I don't know, the little overworld monsters in Zelda games and in Turnip Boy are not a ton of fun to engage. Yeah. It's usually just sort of one poke with the sword and they pop and disappear.
Yeah, no, I see that.
Yeah, and Turnip Boy, they turn into a little purple skull and a little cloud of smoke that disappears. So it's cute to see when it happens, but I don't need to see it happen 300 times. Plus, it has the enemies sort of come back to life when you leave the room.
There it is.
So you leave a screen and then come back, and all the enemies that you just killed are there again. So I'm not going to keep killing them, unless I need health, because they drop hearts, in which case I'll bump up a couple of them until I top off my health, and then try to avoid them. But the game makes them avoidable. So there are some boss battles that you get into that are unavoidable, where the doors lock behind you and you can't go anywhere until you take down the bad guy. The other conceit of this that I sort of really like and sort of appreciate, and a little bit of Zelda that comes from this as well, is Zelda influence, is that you get kind of what sort of amounts to kind of a portal gun, essentially, and you use it to solve puzzles that allow you to access parts of the world that you wouldn't otherwise be able to get to. So you there will be kind of one portal someplace on the other side of the map that you need to be at, and you can use your little gun to kind of warp to it. But there might be an obstacle in the way, in which case you'll use your little portal gun to set up a portal on your side of the map, and then you'll kick a bomb into the portal, and it'll pop out the other side and kill the obstacle, or banish the enemy, and that'll allow you to safely transport through. And the game does some pretty kind of fun and creative little problem-solving kind of moments, little puzzle-solving moments with that conceit as well. So I've had a lot of fun just kind of suss out some of the little puzzles and stuff the game has dropped into the world. Everything sort of goes back to a vegetable or a gardening kind of aesthetic. So the little bomb plants that grow only grow if you water them. So you have a little watering can that has an unlimited source of water, and you'll splash water onto the little bomb plant, and you don't have to wait for it to grow. It just immediately pops into the world, and then you get a cool little pair of boots that you wear around that allows you to kick bombs. Fun little things like that. In fact, your sword grew off of a plant. You have to sort of water the plant in the beginning, and the sword grows off of a sword tree, and you pluck it, and it's really like a leaf. It looks like a leaf, but you use it as a sword for most of the game. Yeah, so there's that, and you then go forward into the world, run a bunch of errands, make a bunch of allies and friends. Each corner of the map that you go to, has kind of a different aesthetic hook to it, and you'll run into sort of recurring characters and make friends and hear some unsavory stories about things that Mayor Onion has done, and you're sort of led to believe that maybe he's not the best guy. In fact, there may be a little bit of a community uprising against Mayor Onion, and you're just, an innocent turnip boy. You're not trying to get wrapped up in all of this stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe you can no longer ignore the fact that Mayor Onion is not a nice person.
Yeah. Maybe you shouldn't pay your taxes.
maybe that's the lesson here. But yeah, it's fun. I've had a good time with it. It's not a very long game. I think I'm probably in the third hour, and I'm just about done with it.
Oh, really?
But it is sort of at a microcosm of a Zelda experience, sort of enjoyable in a similar way to kind of those old Zelda games.
Huh. Well, the way you were describing it, I was picturing like this vast sort of Zelda overworld, but it sounds like it's actually kind of compressed.
It's pretty compact. Yeah, you get there are some little hidden side areas that you can access if you can sort of solve the little bomb puzzle to get there, or use your portal gun in a unique way. But most of the pathways are pretty clear to your next thing, and it's generally not kind of a long trudge off to the next place. Mayor Onion will go, "I need you to go to this, this spooky old village on the edge of town, and get into a house there and get me this thing that's inside the house." And you're thinking, "Oh, it's going to be quite a trek to get out there," and it's really just like down one screen and left. So it's
we're on a budget.
We're in it right. It's very indie. It's very compact. It's very efficient.
Yeah, that's fine.
You do a fair amount of backtracking because you're constantly always going back to Mayor Onion, who is standing in front of your house and blocking the door.
Yeah.
He won't let you in until you pay off your debt.
I like stories and games, incidentally, that kind of get to the point. Like, they don't need to draw stuff out. You don't need to explore over 5 screens to get to this place. It doesn't need to be in this epic journey every single time.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely. And it's I respect that about Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion, particularly since I'm sort of balancing this with Yakuza 7, which never gets to the goddamn point of anything. It is just the most wandering and meandering sort of video game experience, and it has so many characters and so many storylines to sort of keep track of. Yeah. And Turnip Boy is just a delight of efficiency. It is sort of direct and to the point. It has a lot of characters, but I don't know, they're pretty sort of memorable and pretty concise. The only person that has sort of overstayed their welcome thus far is the aforementioned Elbow Pasta. And he just talked for far too long, but I think that's kind of the joke of that character.
That's his deal.
That's his thing, yeah. But everybody else is more or less giving you pretty good advice. There's the character that I like the most is a little researcher, and she's half of an avocado. And she is actually sort of her body and face are the pit of the avocado, and she wears sort of half of the fruit as her backpack. It's just a super delightful and cute kind of character.
Okay, I think I can picture this. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll find you a picture, but she's, and she pops up at sort of critical moments to kind of give you important information and kind of tell you where you're at and where you're going. And she seems to get around town quite a bit. It is always sort of in a helpful place. But it has never worn out her welcome, has never sort of talked for longer than I care to listen. So yeah, again, just sort of delightfully efficient. Yeah, it doesn't put up a ton of a fight. There, some of the boss battles get a little intense because there's a lot going on, and you have a very small window. You have, it's just sort of one screen that these things exist in, and the doors have closed behind you, and you're trying to sort of avoid the giant spinning whatever while it shoots out rays of whatever, and you have to sort of water the bomb plants and kick them in his direction and hope they sort of connect 5 or 6 times to be able to banish the villain. So again, very sort of, early Zelda in a lot of ways. But yeah, it certainly has its own sort of sense of humor, sensibility, certainly has its own very sort of cute and unique aesthetic to it. It's just, the artwork is, I don't know, I keep saying the word delightful because when I play this, I have a giant smile on my face and it looks like everything was just sort of labored over to make it as sort of cute as humanly possible.
So how is this the funniest game ever? Is it just the writing is very good?
Yeah, I think that's it. I wouldn't necessarily agree thus far that 90% through it, that it's the funniest game I've ever played.
But it is funny.
But It's funny, yeah. There is some, Mayor Onion in his sort of stupid hand-wringing villainy is quite funny. You continue to sort of bump into and interact with a colorful cast of very funny characters who are written quite elegantly. The blueberries are always very enthusiastic for no particular reason, but they're always sort of talking at you in all caps and very fast. And there's a blueberry that's sort of in love with a strawberry, and you sort of bump into the strawberry a little bit later and, give her a gift from the blueberry you met down the lane, and she thinks it's from you. So there's sort of a little bit of a confusion there and an awkward moment. And so again, it's just funny little sort of incidental things like that don't necessarily move the plot forward in any sort of unique way, but are just kind of fun and cute and memorable and, lightly sketched scenarios that, just make it a bit of a smile of a game.
That's cool. It's tough to do humor in games, as we've discussed before.
Absolutely.
Sounds like it's not, maybe it's not going out of its way to try and be the funniest game of all time, but I appreciate when the humor lands consistently.
Yes, yeah. There's nothing that sort of, in 2021 on the internet, I think the worst thing you can possibly be is cringy. Or be guilty of contributing cringe into the world. And there's really nothing about Turnip Boy that feels cringy. It just feels like everything lands, everything's sort of light and efficient, and it's just a sort of breeze that goes by, and you smile and sort of like, oh, that was fun. That was a delight. Much like the game itself, it sort of never outstays its welcome. It'll be over soon, so you might as well enjoy the brief time you have with it. So if in case you can't tell, I'm a little enthusiastic about Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion. I think it's been a lot of fun to play.
Oh, good. It sounds like a very wholesome experience.
It is indeed that, yeah. I was surprised, in fact, that it had combat because the way that it sort of presents itself is very much along the lines of one of those, those kind of cute and frictionless kind of wholesome games that I enjoy so much. So in the early hours of this, where Turnip Boy gets a sword and has to defend himself from a bunch of vegetarians, snails. Who would want to eat him. There's a big sign that says, "Watch out, the snails are vegetarians and they will eat you."
So it's all in self-defense. He's not going out
right,
murdering people.
Yeah. When Turnip Boy starts sort of, throwing his sword around and turning little snails into puffs of smoke with a purple skull in the middle. I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting to fight things in this game, but sure, I'll go along with you on this journey.
All right. I wonder if they could have done it without any of the combat.
I don't know.
I mean, it sounds like you're just avoiding a lot of it anyway, so maybe you can just do that.
Yeah, the boss battles, though, are a pretty significant thing here.
Yeah.
Every sort of mission the mayor gives you ends with, a fight against someone. One of his little minions or some other thing that's happening, again, you would have to come up with something that sort of feels like a bit of a chapter close that doesn't necessarily hinge on you killing the bad guy.
Just like a big tax form that you can not fill out. I don't know how to make that interesting. That's why I don't make video games.
One of the things that I sort of think continues to be sort of funny about the video game is that when you get the letter in the mail from Mayor Onion in the beginning that says that you've not paid your taxes and you owe a ton of money, you get one button option. There's only really one thing you can do, and it says tear in half. So you hit the button and it rips the little tax bill and it disappears into the world. And then as you sort of get further into the game, you start finding posters that Mayor Onion has hung up that says Turnip Boy is wanted for not paying his taxes. And you can sort of examine the poster, and then you get the one button prompt that says tear in half, and you rip the one. And then I went into the menus and I was kind of poking around, and there's a whole list of things that you have to find and tear in half in this game. So at some point somebody gives you a clue or a message or something like that, and you go whoosh, you tear it in half, and the other person goes, "That was very rude, Turnip Boy." So his default when handed a piece of paper is to just tear it in half, even if it's not a tax bill.
Nice. Yeah. Just paper, tear it in half. That's all I know.
Tear it in half. This game also has, and I'll sort of get to the end here, is that it has some really good accessibility options. So if you're not up for, prolonged boss battles, or have kind of a low level of tolerance for, repeatedly throwing yourself at the same enemy over and over, as you do with some of these boss fights, you can go into the pause menu anytime and double, triple, or quadruple your strength. And it just makes you harder to kill, obviously. It also has a God mode switch, which makes it impossible for you to kill.
Yeah.
To be killed. So that you can just make yourself indestructible and kind of stroll through the game. I don't think the combat is, is hard enough, is difficult enough, is frustrating enough to warrant kind of futzing around with those things for me. But if you're coming at this from a different perspective, or if you're a young person who is not so great at video games or something like that, who wants to sort of experience this, you can certainly increase Turnip Boy's strength or put it on God mode for a little kiddo to have fun with.
Nice. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Is there an auto battle?
There's no auto battle that I'm aware of.
Oh, well, then, I'm not interested.
Yeah, you can't sit back. You still have to participate. But I like that when you go into that menu, the pause menu, there's a little note from the developer that says, we want Turnip Boy to be enjoyable by everyone.
Oh, that's good.
In the interest of doing that, here are some fun controls that you can play with. And it's the little switches and the little strength meters that you can play with. So there's just a little mission statement from the developers saying, here is a way to make the game approachable to you.
Nice.
Yeah, I appreciate that immensely.
Glad to see more developers doing that. That's really good.
It really feels like Celeste was... It was, maybe it existed before that in a big way, but that was the first place that I really noticed a huge impact and a huge level of appreciation for that.
I think a lot of attention for that, yeah.
Absolutely. And it seems like that has had a pretty significant kind of ripple effect. Yeah. Not just in indie games, but in sort of gaming in general for accessibility in games, I think.
When did, I can't remember when Celeste came out, but I also remember like Horizon Zero Dawn had that like story mode difficulty, which I imagine was controversial just because gamers are just trash heaps. But it basically just like turned off the combat essentially because that game has a very strong story component.
There's elements of that in Last of Us 2 as well. That
oh really?
You can sort of see you can see almost sort of a direct line between the controls that you had in adjusting the difficulty in Celeste and making the combat and other elements of Last of Us 2, even sort of a colorblind mode and
that's the one where it's
things like that.
Yeah, there are a bunch of very like interesting sliders you can adjust. I haven't played The Last of Us 2, but I remember reading about like you can make combat easier in very specific ways. I thought was kind of surprising.
Yes, yeah, very much so. So cool. Yeah, the more people that get the game, the better, I think.
Yeah. Well, cool. I should check this out. I would. I was struggling to come up with like games that I played that I think are just hilarious. They like Portal 2 was on there, both Portals are on there. We talked about the Stanley Parable. A lot of the Yakuza games are pretty funny.
Yeah.
But I don't know if somebody asked me like, hey, what's your favorite comedy game? I don't know if I would be able to come up with an answer right away.
Yeah, no, I would really have to probably scratch my head and put some serious thought into that. And you would think that if it was the funniest thing ever, it would just occur to you. You'd be like, I have the perfect answer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't, off the top of my head, what's the funniest video game? I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
But Turnip Boy, very funny.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
well,
but that's not all it is.
Quick answer.
So, yeah, there you go. Now we have an answer. Rock Paper Shotgun said it's the best funny. No, what did they say? The funniest video game ever.
Yeah.
So this is on the Switch where I'm playing it, but it's also on itch and Steam.
Interesting.
So you can get your Turnip Boy fix in a number of places.
Nice. Well, just why I need another Switch game.
There you go. It's over quick though. It's just kind of light and breezy. Just a delightful little confection for you to spend a few hours with.
Yeah, a little weekend thing.
Yeah. So, I think that's it. I think that's all I got.
I think that's it. Yeah. I forgot to mention, so I believe it regarding the ridiculous NieR, the title with that huge number in it.
Yeah.
I believe it's the square root of 1.5. And I think that's a way of showing that it's not quite just a straight remake, but it's not. I mean, it's not quite a straight remaster, but it's not like a remake or a reimagining either. It's somewhere like mysteriously in between.
Okay, so it's not just random. There is some sort of semblance of thought that has gone into assigning that number to it.
Right. Like, despite Yoko Taro saying, like, oh, I just picked the silly number, it's like, well, it seems like there's a very clear meaning behind it, or at least, like, you could extrapolate some meaning out of it.
Interesting.
Just weird dude, Yoko Taro.
I'm going to have to look into him. I like sort of wacky video game auteurs. I don't always like their video games.
Yeah.
But I like when sort of a big video game personality sort of pops up. And maybe I've slept on him a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know if you would be, I mean, don't want to get all the way back into NieR. I'm just trying to think if you would be into this. I feel like you would, like, the anime protagonist would not sit well with you, but who knows?
I can be a little judgmental.
All right,
we're going to wrap this thing.
Play that PS3 version. Drag the PS3 out of the closet. Check that out.
Mine's still hooked up. I'm still hoping someday maybe I'll go back and play all the video games I didn't on it.
There you go.
It's not going to happen.
Well, yeah, there's that.
I'm just waiting for me to get a PS5 so I can unplug it.
Yeah, right.
Oh. If you need any more video game hangover in your brain, you can follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/VGHangover. And don't forget, you can always get show notes and links and tell us what you thought about the episode at VGHangover.com. We would love for you to hang out with us on Discord as well. You can get a link to that at VGHangover.com too.
Tell us your favorite PS2 games. I heard you're looking for recommendations. Well, that wasn't you, but they should still tell you about their favorite PS2 games.
There was that, yeah. Someone was sort of power collecting video games, PS2 games, on the Discord this week and looking for recommendations.
I love a PS2 game. It's about time they just, like, let's skip PlayStation 6. Let's just do, like, PS2 remastered or something.
PS2.114.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. The only contribution I never had a PS2. Never had one in my life. So I was trying to sort of reflect back on what were kind of the parallel Xbox games at the time. So I remember Silent Hill 2 being a good, scary game on the PS2, PS2 Xbox kind of era. So that was my one contribution. That's all I could add.
Nice. Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah, I figured you'd appreciate that. What else? Subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and anywhere else you can get a podcast. There are a lot of places. And most importantly, perhaps just tell your friends about the show. Yeah, tell your friends. We desperately need ideas for what to do with episode 500. Otherwise, we're just going to talk about, I don't know, PlayStation 2 games. That sounds like a great episode. I would show up for that. Despite me just saying I had never played it. Oh, right. Yeah. Well, so, I mean, you'll just talk about Silent Hill too, I guess. Yeah, that's the only, I'll just talk about sort of parallel Xbox games at the time. Yeah. You'll be like, well, I don't know what you're talking about, but how about that Halo or whatever? I've got 45 minutes of Guitar Hero to talk about. Right. Oh, man. Speaking of 45 minutes of Guitar Hero, we want to give thanks again to Felly Kitty for our intro and outro music this week. Please go and check out more of her work at fellykitty.bandcamp.com. It's good. Yeah. Oh, you know what else is good? And I keep doing this at the end of the show, but the music in Turnip Boy, quite good. Oh, okay. Yeah. Looking forward to our best music episode. Just a full 3-hour live playthrough of the whole game. I could be down for that. Yeah. Maybe that's episode 500. Just 3 hours of, I don't know. Turnip Boy music. Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, thanks for listening to Video Game Hangover. I'm Randy Dickinson. I'm DJ Ross. I did it backwards, but thank you for listening to Video Game Hangover, and goodbye. Goodbye. Good night. Bye. You would never know I've done this 500 times.